Now with the production models, they are designs that I approved or made myself or took somebody else's design and actually, reworked it into a design that I liked. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you're a knife maker, make up your own designs, borrow from somebody else's. You might like a handle on one and a blade tip on another, and just throw it together and see how it works out. But I have at least, I want to say at least 6 production knives that are up there, and some of them may change, some of them may stay. But they are pretty easy to make, which is why I kept them up there. I like that. Um, and for some of you guys that don't know, there are different ways of making knives. Specifically, a lot of guys that have been doing this for a long time, they get a nice big piece of steel, they get a CAD drawing or drawer knife that's in CAD, they put it in a computer, and the computer and the machine work together to cut out the steel into blanks, into knife blanks. And that is by far the most cost-effective and accurate way of doing it. The problem with that is that it costs money, and we're talking, maybe $1,000. So, between the steel, between the blanks, between the operator's time, it's a couple $100. I'm not going to say it's 1,000 completely, but it's up there. It's up there, especially steel prices are going higher and higher. So I don't know what the hell's going to go on. But for your average guy like myself and a couple guys that are custom knife makers that work out of their garage or whatever, this is how I do it. Basically, you got your piece of steel and you have to draw your template on there. It doesn't matter how you make a template. You can do it by cardboard, you can do it by plastic, you can do it in paper and then transfer it to a piece of plastic and use that. You could even use knife kits. This is a kit blade. Basically, you buy it off the internet, and then you could use this if you wanted to make duplicates. So the idea behind this is just to make multiple duplicates and have them as accurate as possible without a computer. Okay, they're not. If you do it in this method, they're not going to be 100%. There's nothing you can do. It's just the way it is. Your hand, your day, your hour is all going to be different. If it's not being cut out by a computer, all of them will be a little bit different. Some of the ways you can mark your steel, you put the piece on, whatever it is, you draw it out with a Sharpie pen. Okay, I use the big black tip Sharpies. Some people like the fine tip. All right, this one's a little bit smaller. Okay, and what you really should understand is that if you are going to use the Sharpie, the thick point, okay, that thick point will leave about 1/8 of an inch mark on the steel. Okay, I don't know if you could see that. See that 1/8 of an inch mark? And when you are cutting from your grinder, your steel, whatever, or your belt grinder, whatever, what you're gonna have to do is cut that, because that leaves at least 1/8 of an inch line, and you've added 1/8 of an inch line to your original template. Okay, so be aware of that. Some guys use steel blue. It's called Dykem. You can get this anywhere. You can get it in spray, and you can get it in this form. And what you do is you coat the whole piece of steel in Dykem, and then you use a scratch-all. I think this is a multi-purpose one, but basically it'll scratch the steel for you, and it'll scratch lines into the steel. This way, if you dip it in water, it's not going to come off. So you can use this method. I've used it before. Just be careful with this, because it gets everywhere and it smells, you don't want, couldn't cause respiratory tract infection. You don't want to keep this around anybody, any kids or anything, or somebody that might be allergic to the stuff. So just be aware of that. I find Magic Marker is cheap, and it's easy, and it's fast. A couple other things, maybe a punch. You will definitely need some vice grips. These vice grips work really well for me because they're smaller and they're easy to clip onto. You're going to need hearing protection, respirators, and gloves, and all that other safety equipment. Because today, if you do decide to make your knife blanks, you're not going to make one. You're going to make multiples. So your equipment will get a workout today. Without a doubt, your sander, your grinder, anything that you use. I mean, here, just look at this. This is just today. This is what I did today. Let's see if I can get some light on here. Oops. Let's see if you can see that. Alright, see how much space there is in between that? This is a completed disc. Alright, this is one that has not been used yet. It's 6 inches by 34 by 1/4. Look at the size of this thing. Look how much I've eaten up. So today, you will definitely, if you decide to make blanks in this route, you will beat up your equipment. So make sure you're prepared for that. Make sure you drink plenty of water, have all your safety equipment. You know, if you're going to make a lot of noise, it's going to be a couple hours worth of noise. There's no way around it. You are making blanks to potentially sell them to others. So I'm going to show you a couple tricks on what I do today, how I did it. These knives will be available on the website. Alright, so when you're doing your layouts, try to use as much as the steel as possible. There's only a little piece left right there, but I could use that for something else. Alright, just some tips you might be interested to know. That even though I marked it out with a felt pen, you could still see how off this is. Alright, I don't know if you could see the blade. Even though I marked it off and I was very accurate, or tried to be as accurate as possible, this is why we make a template, because with the template you can just snap it on tight. Usually what I do is try to line up the handles as much as possible. The reason that is because if you line up the handles, or the grooves that you created with the handles, that is a lot easier to reference than the tip of the blade. So if you reference the tip of the blade but your handles didn't match up, now you have to go back and correct the handles. And the handles are going to be a lot harder to correct than a simple belly of the edge. So just take that for what it's worth. Also the spine, I try to line up the spine of the blade. It is going to be the straightest point, especially if you don't take too much off. And also, one final thing I wanted to show you was that when this comes into, when you get the stock steel, you might notice that it has the foundry edge on it. Okay, some are precision ground steels, which means that they actually, after they create the steel and they pour it, they will, you know, take a milling machine and cut off all this extra lip. And I don't know if you could see that lip right there, but that's from the actual mold itself, and you have to take that off. Okay, as you take that off, you'll see it'll start to create the grind grooves from the belt itself. So even though you are grinding with your belts, you still have to grind and smooth, and then again, as the grits get higher and higher, you will smooth it out. But for where we are at this point, we use a 36-inch grind belt, and we get as much off and we get it as accurate as we can to our template. Alright guys, here's what I did today. Thanks for watching all the vids. Really appreciate that. But ultimately what you do is you can create a knife. This happens to be the walkabout template. Basically you make a template out of steel, and then you make multiples out of the steel. Okay. Ideally what you want to do is use as much of the bar stock as possible. I always buy my steel in 36 inches and use as much as I possibly can. And the idea behind this is to use as much of the steel as possible, but to also get as far ahead as you possibly can. Now, these pieces of steel right here, you could see they're all 5/32. There's no edge on them whatsoever, but the profile is there. Okay, and now that the profile is there, it's so much less work that I have to do. I have 1, 2, 3 and the template itself that I could already cut, send the heat treat, come back, put some handles on, and then sell them somewhere else. Okay, and that's the idea behind the templates. If you are going to become a knife maker for profit or to try to get ahead of the game, it's good to have a template that's available to you. Like I said, some people like plastic, some people use cardboard, use whatever the hell you want. I like using steel because I get a feel for it. Now, these measurements are going to change. Now, this is the cutout template, okay? And the idea behind the cutout template is to give you an overall basic on the steel, because what will happen is as you're sharpening it, as you are getting the grinds on it, it'll shrink. Okay, the weight will drop. It's not going to be this thick anymore. But you need a place to start, and you need a place to reference. So let's say I was grinding, right? This is the Bushman's template right here. Okay, let's say I was grinding. I was grinding on one of my templates, and the edge looks a little funky. Well, maybe I grinded too much on one point. I will take my template then and then match it up to see maybe my point is off by a couple millimeters. All right, that's the idea behind the template. You can change your template as I often do. Maybe a template was up on the website and I saw, and I was like, maybe I want to make the knife a little bit longer, or maybe the handle a little bit different. You can do that, and then that one that you make then becomes the template, and the other one you could sell, you could give it away, you could do whatever you want. Ideally, what you want to do is take a knife all the way from template to finish, to completion, and then send this to heat treat. And then when you have heat treat done, then that becomes your template. Okay, the idea behind that is because the knife is already done. All right, it's already been sanded, it's already been cut, it's already finished. So now when it's finished, you could actually see the finished product on the blank itself, whereas on one of these, you can only see the blank. So I hope that makes sense. Also, if it's heat treated, it's less likely that it'll warp. Like, I don't know if you see this one here, but it warped. Okay, the reason it warped is because I was pressing on it and heat and everything else. Now, that doesn't change the fact that it's a template. It's a template, so I don't care if it gets beat up. It's supposed to get beat up. What I will do is probably heat it up again, change it, clean it up, and then maybe make it a knife somewhere else, you know, get the warp out of it, all that good stuff, all right? So that's the idea behind that. I think templates are an excellent tool, especially if you're going to be in the knife making industry.